Hi everyone, Jesse here again. Today's topic is perfectionism. So I'm going through all of the P words of the things that get in the way of our leadership and our work. So my last video was about people pleasing, and today I'm talking about perfectionism. So if this resonates with you, please send me an email or leave a comment. My email address, jesse@jessekaten.com, is on the screen. I'd love to hear from you. So perfectionism is the compulsion to make things, our work, our projects, ourselves, perfect, of course. And it comes with a deep satisfaction or intolerance for perceived flaws. So where does perfectionism come from? Well, like the other P words, I'm convinced that it's a response to trauma. So people with perfectionistic tendencies believe that if they can make their work, their projects, themselves as close to perfect as possible, they will be safe. So safe from failure, safe from criticism, safe from judgment, and safe from experiencing shame. So perfectionists equate being perfect with safety. And striving to be perfect is an attempt to avoid shame. So how does perfectionism get in our way? Here's what I see with my leadership clients. First of all, it keeps us from getting things done. Perfectionism is closely tied to procrastination, which is another P word that I'll talk about in my next video. So if we mess and fuss and insist on being perfect, or we insist on our projects being perfect, then we are never satisfied. We can never let our projects go. And that drains us of our time and our energy. Second, perfectionism simply keeps us from being happy. It keeps us from being happy or being satisfied with our work and with ourselves. So it fuels feelings of inadequacy. And who needs that, really? So finally, perfectionism trains your brain to look for flaws, faults, and failures. And whatever you practice looking for, you are going to find. So that sets you up for a really negative relationship with reality, a really distorted view of reality, actually, that you're practicing. You're getting better at finding bad things when you're a perfectionist. So that's not a skill that you necessarily want. That's a really distorted view of reality. That's the result from that. So speaking of reality, perfectionists are confused about a few things, or they have a lot of problematic or inaccurate assumptions. And the first problem in their thinking is that perfect is even real, is even a thing, or that it's possible. And it isn't. So perfect, I like to say, perfect is irrelevant. It just shouldn't be a consideration. Second of all, perfectionists make the mistake of believing that there is one ideal way of doing something that is better than all other ways. And that's certainly not true at all. Often there are countless ways to achieve the same outcome, and one is not necessarily better than another. So perfectionists have a very hard time with two things: ambiguity and arbitrariness, or with the arbitrary. So first, ambiguity, because if something isn't clear, or there's some messiness or some subjectivity, how will they know if it's perfect or not? How can they find safety and certainty if there is no certainty? So that's a problem for perfectionists. And similarly, perfectionists have a hard time with arbitrariness, or things that are arbitrary. That is, choices or decisions that could go either way. So the truth is that sometimes multiple options are just as good as any other and will lead to the same desired outcome. But guess what? Life and leadership are both full of ambiguity and arbitrary choices. So here are some strategies for managing perfectionism. First, allow things to be perfectly imperfect. What a useful phrase. I love that phrase. Perfectly imperfect. So the next time you can't stop fussing with something, ask yourself, is this perfectly imperfect? And if so, leave it alone. Let it be done. Let it be done. Instead of asking, is this perfect? Or is this as good as it could be? Ask instead, is this accomplishing what I want it to? Just enough that I can let it go and move on to the next task or project. So is this accomplishing what I want it to? Does this email, is it sending the message I need it to? And then let it go so that you can move on. Allow yourself to move on to the next thing so that you don't deplete and waste your time and your energy. Next, here's a strategy that I use myself and it has never led me astray. Have a percentage of perfect that you can tolerate. So for me, a friend who's a teacher suggested 65%. That's a passing grade in school. So when I'm wondering if something I'm working on is good enough, or if I am adequately prepared to go in front of an audience or to teach a workshop, I simply ask, am I at least, or do I feel at least 65% ready? And I've learned that feeling at least 65% ready means I'm going to be successful. It means that my audience is still receiving 100% of something. So it's important to acknowledge that to yourself. When I ask myself, am I feeling 65% ready? And then I go and I deliver that workshop or I give that presentation. My audience doesn't perceive, oh, this is 65% of what you could have done. No, they get 100% of what I'm offering. And that's successful. So if you can, I think it's important to yourself to acknowledge that, look at how successful your work is if you are at least 65% ready when you let it go. You can change that percentage to anything that you want. That's an arbitrary distinction. It could be 70%, could be 80%, could be 55%, whatever works for you. But I know if that's an arbitrary distinction and you're a perfectionist, you're going to struggle with that. So go with 65. But it also keeps you from getting hung up waiting until you feel 100% ready, which is just never going to happen. If I waited until I was 100% ready before I went in front of an audience, I wouldn't do it. So finally, here's a transformative thought to remember. Maybe you've heard this expression before, but it changed everything for me. Done is better than perfect. So think about that. Take that in. Done is better than perfect. No matter how high you believe your standards are, you're not being productive if you're not allowing things to be done, finished, or completed as they are. In other words, if they're serving your purpose, doing what you need them to do, your tasks, your projects, etc., let them be done and let them go. Think of it this way. The tasks or the projects that you're working on, they want to be finished. They themselves want to be done. You're the one that's holding them back from the world. So let them go. And then you can go on to the next. Then you feel the freedom of being able to move on to the next. So speaking of moving on to the next time we will talk about procrastination. Can't wait to share that with you. And I'll try not to put off making that video on procrastination. Thanks.